Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Monday, the 24th of August, comes to you from London. And we see quite a lot of green on the screen, so good start to the week. It's just the first impression that you get looking at the market. Remembering this is my long-term, my medium-term, and my short-term view, weekly, daily, and 60-minute charts. The Ichimoku clouds. If we're below the cloud, we're bearish. We're above the cloud, we're bullish. In a nutshell, with the corresponding point and figure charts, and I've got 1%, 0.5%, and 0.1% on the 60-minute, giving me again long-term, medium-term, and short-term targets. So we just go through and look at the tracker charts changing. So we start with the dollar index. Had a better end to the week last week, turning bullish above the cloud with an upside target. We do still have some downside targets hanging over us, and the long-term picture is still mixed. Upside targets and a downside target. So a lot of mixed trends here, but on the whole, the dollar has been bearish this year. Looking at the euro, we see that had that transition earlier this year where we turned into long-term bullish, but this week we are short-term bearish. We've got one downside target, but three upside targets, so don't be surprised to see this trend short-lived. The longer-term trends will normally win. Looking at sterling, we're sitting at 131 against that dollar. A bit of a roller coaster the last few days in sterling. We've oscillated between 130 and 132.50. We are back into bearish territory, so just weaker sterling against the dollar. But we have had, of course, a resurgence in sterling over the last couple of months, so it has held up quite well against the dollar. Looking at sterling against the euro, we're sitting at just under 111. We are still just holding a short bull trend there, short term, but the long-term chart is pretty static. Medium term, we've been sitting around this 110 level for a good 4 months now. Longer term, we are still bearish sterling. Looking at Bitcoin, we're sitting at $11,780. So we're back into bullish territory on the short-term chart. No clear upside targets for the week, but we do have some very big long-term targets still to play for. On Friday, we saw the S&P 500 index up slightly. That gave us a little green candle here for the week, but really still just testing the previous high that we saw back in February. We just nudged above that, but not enough to really say that we've broken resistance. So this week will be critical. The trends are still bullish. We've got good upside targets. So there's no reason to believe that the market will go lower this week yet, but just keep an eye on those shorter term charts. The Nasdaq 100, of course, has been powering ahead, so we've seen a lot of power there. And the Dow was up 0.2% on Friday. Still has a little bit of work to do to get to making a new high, so not quite as good looking as the S&P or of course the Nasdaq, which is making very clear new highs. The futures this morning, we're seeing the E-mini S&P up 0.6%, and we're seeing the Nasdaq E-mini up just under 1%, so it does suggest that US markets will open higher today. The market volatility we're seeing here is up 1%, but on the whole the VIX volatility has been declining ever since we saw it peak in March. So that's good for stocks, of course, a lower volatility. Looking at the FTSE future, we're up 1.8% in the UK. The DAX cash is up 1.8%. So we are seeing some quite big moves here in Europe this morning, and so we're looking stronger there. The CAC Quarante is up 1.85%, and so we are really just seeing, again, pushing higher. Not yet making new highs, anything like the US market, of course, and we are still long-term below the cloud there. But for the moment, whilst the US markets power ahead, we do see Europe catching up. Japan was little changed overnight, just up 0.2%, but it is still holding bullish and starting to look a little bit better on that long-term chart. We really do need to break the high set at the beginning of the year. We are still in a long-term downtrend there. The Hang Seng, much the same picture actually. We're in a long-term downtrend and we are bearish below the cloud here, although short-term bullish on the chart there. The Shanghai Index was up very slightly. It's holding on to the gains that we saw this year, making new 2-year highs. Of course, that is good news for Chinese stocks. And in India, we're up over 1% overnight. just taking the long-term chart now into bullish territory on the lagging line. Not quite there yet on the price, but the Indian market is starting to look strong again. If we look at the long-term chart, we've got good upside targets activated. Of course, a new high would be a bullish sign that we really need to see the Indian market motoring ahead. The Aussie market was only up 0.3%, a little bit weaker there, still in that resource-laden stock index. Looking at gold, we're sitting at 1948 this morning, still just short-term bearish. We've got targets in both directions. We're really waiting to see which one will be activated on that medium-term chart. We've got great long-term targets to the upside. So gold is still looking bullish, and short-term we've got one to 1981. That's a further 1.7% higher. So once we start breaking this cloud, don't be surprised to see gold running again. This is a very bullish chart, of course, going straight up the hill from $1,200 to $2,000 in the last couple of years. Silver sitting at 2681. Also looking bullish on the medium and long-term charts. Just short-term, we're still a little bit in bearish mode. And if we look at US 10-year yields, the interesting thing here is we're at 0.6%, we're at 6.64%. Long-term yields are still falling lower, and the short-term chart is lower. We've got targets to 0.6. It's a further 6% downside in the 10-year yield, so that's not great. Looking at the energy mix now, we start with Brent crude. Crude oil being the main driver in energy, of course. Brent crude did just sink lower on Friday. We've called it neutral this week for clients, but at the moment we're just breaking out of that range. We've got targets in both directions. A few more downside targets here. Does look like crude oil is running out of steam. The markets are pretty quiet this week. We may have to wait till next week till we get some clear direction as to which way we're going to break. And WTI, double bottom forming there, and mixed targets there as well. So again, just neutral there. US nat gas is down 1.2%, but we are really holding the gains that we've seen on the daily chart. Medium term, we're really making new 9-10 month highs, so that's really bullish. We've got an upside target here to 257 and some quite big upside targets potentially on the 60-minute chart. If we can break above this 250 level, don't be surprised to see US nat gas running higher. Coal is actually up this morning, but it has had a pretty tough couple of weeks, and we are now back below the cloud. So it's hard to be bullish on coal when you see it sinking like this. And we've got a downside target to $51. Looking at emissions, good recovery here this morning, and an upside target 28.30, just nudging the previous resistance level at the moment. So that's quite key. But it does look like emissions is set to have a good week ahead. So that's looking quite good. MBP is down a bit this morning. Sorry, it's up this morning, but it has really come back a bit here. Not looking so good with these downside targets hanging over us. TTF, front month, Dutch gas looking a little bit better. And we are seeing again some upside potential here, and it is holding the trend. Looks like it's putting in a higher low, so that's also quite good. Winter gas, also looking pretty good this morning. And if we look last of all at German power, we do have a new upside target. We are range bound, so we're neutral here. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.